Hi guys, hope you're well and surviving lockdown. You have to forgive my lockdown hair. Obviously it's growing out a bit, but everything seems to be shut down here in London, so that's how it is. I'm just responding to a request actually for a video. So Ryan, who runs the Facebook group Stocks Without Hype, which I actually help out with now and again, he would like me to do a video on my due diligence and what websites I use. He would also like to look at the numbers and what I'm looking at, and I kind of do cover that in my other video, which I'll post a link to. So for augmenting fintech, it kind of that I review and go into, it kind of tends to be the similar kind of stuff that I'm looking for really. So this video is going to be focusing, I guess, where I get my sources of information from, and actually which ones should you completely disregard. There's one in particular that's a very kind of, I guess, popular site. A lot of clickbait appears on it, but I think it's actually not very good at all. I'm being polite when I say that, but let's look into it a little bit. What I really don't like, in my opinion, is actually the Motley Fool. I think it's actually a waste of space. I'm not the only one that thinks that, but let me explain why I think that. It's basically because they flip-flop their position more times than a dolphin does, right? It's just like they're pro something, they're con something, they lay all the risks on the table one week, and then they're all about the opportunities the next. It just flip-flops like crazy. So if we look at this, for example, we're just typing Motley Fool Bitcoin into Google, it's just like, it goes from positive to negative to positive again. So in chronological order, I'm going through this. So if I just look at Argo, blockchain, that's a crypto company, basically, crypto mining company. Yeah, on Saturday, 13th February, basically after going through kind of like pros and cons, they kind of are a little bit bullish on their overall. So that's their position on the 13th of February. Then on the 17th, it announced actually Motley Fool has bought 50 million of Bitcoin as an investment, and it kind of goes through and explains why. Things like, it's going to be more effective than gold over the long term, hedge against inflation, yada yada yada. And then a few days after, on the 19th, they're saying, should you add a little bit of Bitcoin to your portfolio after having bought a massive wad of 15 million. And then just yesterday actually, they published this article, 10 reasons I'll never buy Bitcoin, and there's like absolutely no conviction there. There's zero conviction in what Motley Fool are publishing. 1 week they're pro something, the next week they're anti. Actually, this is 2 days, isn't it? Look, a few days really. So February 17th, they announced they're going to buy 5 million worth of Bitcoin, and then on the 20th, they published an article saying 10 reasons I'll never buy Bitcoin. I mean, that's flip-flopping for you, isn't it? So really what I'm after is a more of like a conviction advice, really. Someone who can actually stand behind what they're saying week in, week out. As a result, that's why I don't really trust the Motley Fool. They just publish a whole load of clickbait, in my opinion, but hey, that's my opinion. I could be completely wrong. I'm sure there's people out there who find it useful just to see what people are saying. But for me, I just don't find the Motley Fool very useful, despite its quite widespread presence. So I'm actually a subscriber of Investors Chronicle. I have been now probably for the best part of a decade. It's owned by the Financial Times Group, and it's edited by John Human and 30 other journalists that they have, basically working round the clock on articles, mainly on the FTSE listed companies and also AIM shares. So it's very much a UK based presence. For me, the two main uses of this are actually, firstly, there's educational pieces of how to analyze different stocks and actually different investor approaches, which I find really useful, especially when I started out investing. Second of all, it helps actually generate some investing ideas because they run articles usually by Simon Thompson, who's very well regarded, looking at sort of the smaller cap stocks, and really as a starting point to start investigating and doing my own research. For example, here we've got this article on Argo blockchain about their mining capacity, and it goes into quite some detail about it. Obviously it's quite a short article, but just reading this, you might think actually that's a company I might be interested in that I've never heard of. Let me go away and do my own work on that. Also, what I find useful is actually on the online version of Investors Chronicle, you have access to some of their information. What I find useful is actually they put their articles on the share price chart, so you can actually see at what point they are issuing kind of guidance or advice. They normally give sort of a, their own view of things. So here they have a hold rating on our own blockchain. You can also go to the financials as well, where it tries to give you a bit of a summary of your revenues and your changes, and I quite like it because it has year-over-year variances. In terms of forecasts as well, it actually plots the share price forecast as covered by brokers. So that's especially useful with the larger cap companies. If they have about 4 or 5 brokers on them, you can see the spread of the forecast there. So I'd really recommend Morningstar if you're just starting out. It's completely free, and actually it's got a lot of information on there, from financial ratios, it's got performance, it's got basically a lot of stuff on there. And it's really good because it's completely free, and it's a good starting point. What I really like about Morningstar as well is it has that long-term view, so it's looking over where it can get the data about 5 years of financials. Argo obviously hasn't been going that long, or hasn't been listed that long, so there's a lack of actual data there, but it does try and provide as much data as possible, so it's actually quite a good data source. So my other go-to data source is actually City AM. It's basically the poor man's version of Financial Times. Certainly as a student I read this a lot, and it's a really good kind of like oversight of what's kind of happening in the financial world. You have to watch out sometimes because things are sponsored, but normally it clearly says where items are sponsored. It's definitely a good resource if you don't want to sign up to the full Financial Times. If you do sign up to the Financial Times, I recommend reading the Lex column. So this normally typically gives commentary over I guess topical issues that are affecting the wider economy. It's actually a really good column, and it's quite famous actually. I think sometimes the downside, however, to reading only the FT or City AM is actually you're missing out on wider news and wider issues that might impact the markets later on. So for example, natural disasters and things like that might feature on page 5 rather than page 1 of the news. So sometimes that can be kind of hidden up a little bit. So the resources I mentioned are actually quite good, but that's no excuse for not actually doing your homework. So just to let you know, for any company, just enter the company name, so Argo Blockchain here, and just type in investor relations straight afterwards. And every company every listed company will have an area where it shows data for investors, like retail investors like you and me. So anyone can go on there. And actually, I've got it already loaded. You can dig up the reports and accounts and actually do your own digging and your own due diligence. So really, looking at the income statement, balance sheet, cash flows, all the important stuff that tends to be actually tucked away quite far in the back of the annual report. So this is like page 32. You have to go as far for the cash flows, but it's well worth doing your own homework, so I really recommend that. So a quick shout out to Ryan from the Facebook group Stocks Without Hype. Thanks very much for posing that question. It's a great question really, and actually when you're starting off investing, sometimes you just don't even know where to begin, right?